everyone. I'm Andrea Katipunan, a partner from C&G Law based in the Philippines.
And I am Jackie Arenas, a senior associate from C&G Law. For today's podcast, we are pleased to share a recent update from the Philippine Competition Commission, or PCC, the Philippine government agency tasked with overseeing competition-related matters. To recall, the Philippines operates a mandatory notification system for mergers and acquisition, that is, if a merger or acquisition meets certain thresholds, that merger or acquisition must be notified to and approved by the PCC. These thresholds are the size of party test and the size of transaction test. The size of party considers the gross revenues and assets in the Philippines of a party's ultimate parent entity and all of the entities it controls. On the other hand, the size of transaction test depends on the type of the transaction.
That's right. For example, in case of an acquisition of assets, we look at the value of assets to be acquired and or the gross revenues generated in or into the Philippines by those assets. In case of an acquisition of shares, we look at the assets in the Philippines or the gross revenues in, into, or from the Philippines of the target company and all entities it controls, and whether the buyer should also acquire at least 35% or 50% of the target's outstanding voting shares. And in case of a joint venture, we look at the contribution of the joint venture partners to the joint venture. When these thresholds are met, parties are required to notify the PCC within 30 days from execution of their definitive agreement. But since the pandemic, there has been a moratorium on the 30-day period. In any case, a transaction that is subject to mandatory notification cannot be consummated before securing PCC approval or deemed approval. A transaction which meets the notification thresholds but is not notified to the PCC shall be considered void and may subject the parties and their ultimate parent entities to fines and penalties. Beginning March 1, 2024, the PCC increased the thresholds for transactions that are required to undergo mandatory notification. These new thresholds are set at, for size of party, 7.8 billion pesos, and for size of transaction, 3.2 billion pesos. These were previously set at 7 billion and 2.9 billion respectively.
But why these changes? The PCC adjusts the thresholds for compulsory notification annually based on the nominal gross domestic product, or GDP, growth to ensure they remain relevant to our evolving economic landscape. In 2023 alone, the PCC received 24 notifications of M&A transactions worth almost 610 billion pesos. The Philippines recorded a 10.3% nominal GDP growth according to the data from the Philippine Statistics Authority. This substantial growth necessitated the adjustment in thresholds to align with the country's economic progress. However, it must be remembered that even if a transaction does not breach the thresholds, the PCC's merger review mandate can still be exercised by its own initiative. This can happen if the PCC finds reasonable grounds to believe that a transaction is likely to result in a substantial lessening of competition or has already led to such outcomes based on preliminary indications.
So, what does this mean for businesses? If you're involved in mergers and acquisitions, it's crucial to stay informed about these threshold changes and ensure compliance with PCC requirements. Understanding these updates helps businesses navigate the regulatory landscape effectively and ensures that your transactions proceed smoothly. We hope this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the PCC's mandatory notification thresholds. Thank you for tuning in.